All right, good afternoon and aloha. I'm Ron Mizutani, President and CEO here at PBS Hawaiʻi. We thank you for joining us for this exclusive event this afternoon, the virtual screening featuring a sneak preview of what you folks watch today. It's the award-winning documentary, Waterman, a Duke Ambassador of Aloha. This film has already won several awards, including Audience Award for Best Documentary at the Hawaii International Film Festival and the Ocean Sports Award from the International Ocean Film Festival, among many other accolades. The documentary, by the way, will be airing on Tuesday night, May 10th on PBS Hawaiʻi. Again, that's at 9 p.m. And it will also be available on demand at pbshawaii.org beginning May 10th. I want to jump right into it. Joining us this afternoon is my dear friend, Billy Pratt. Billy is a Waterman Associate Producer. Billy is also the director and past president of the Outrigger Duke Kahanamoku Foundation and the chairman and co-founder of Hawaii Waterman Hall of Fame. Billy, it is an honor to have you here. Humbled to have you here with us, Billy.
Aloha. Thank you so much, Ron. I really appreciate it and glad to be here with everybody. Very exciting time, and I'm certainly excited about hearing what everyone thought about our film. I certainly hope it was well enjoyed. Mahalo for having me.
No, thank you. Before we start hearing from questions, and folks, please type in there your questions and we'll get it out to Billy. But just an amazing project to be a part of. And I know that you have deep kuleana, deep responsibility to the Kahanamoku family. Talk a little bit about that and why authenticity was so very important to keeping that spirit very much alive.
Oh, I appreciate you bringing that question up, Ron. I do. I feel a sense of kuleana. For me, it's been a very interesting project to work on, and something that I didn't anticipate being my COVID homework project. And it's turned out for the last 3 years, it's consumed a lot of my time, not just as a waterman, but in my role at the Duke Kahanamoku Foundation. I've learned a tremendous amount, even from a dear friend of mine, Sandy Hall, who is really an official historian on Duke. She's even educated me that my grandfather, who was an Olympic world record swimmer, at Yale, who's passed on, was really one of the heads of the Duke swim team way back when. So I felt this kuleana to somebody who has enchanted me in my life and what I do, and yet he passed away before I was even born. So I find that some really powerful mana, I think, in my na'au, and in that I've always had a relationship with the descendants of the Kahanamoku family. For those of you who might be wondering, Duke didn't have any children himself. But his great-grandnephew, great-grandniece, Elian Kahanamoku, and Didi Rebello, the Rebello family that own Aloha Beach Services in Waikiki, are very good friends. And I've always felt, I think, this sense of kuleana responsibility to make sure that if a film were shared and a story were told, that we do it right and that we're pono and that we're correct about Duke's history. And we have had their blessing. As many of you saw, both of them were in the film as the oldest descendants of great-grandnephew and great-grandniece of Duke. And so I think I hope that we hit the mark and we've received their approval. So
well, you've received many people's approval, not just accolades from film festivals, but just the community of Hawaii and also beyond our shores. The questions are starting to come in, Billy, so let's get to them.
Sure.
Question is, what measures can Hawaii and the global surfing industry take to make sure that to make sure that the cultural asset, Native Hawaiian cultural asset, to also provide meaningful opportunities for Native Hawaiians to participate at every level of the business, both amateur and competition? Just your thoughts on that. The stewardship angle is very important. We've heard a lot about that, especially during this year with the Olympic, the debut of surfing in the Olympic Games. But great question.
It's a great question, a deep question. I think I could probably touch on it, but certainly may have to take more time after this to really get through the weeds on it. There's so many different levels to answer that question. I know there was a very strong contingent of Hawaiian friends of mine who I serve on a Hawaii Surfing Advisory Board for the Hawaii Tourism Authority, who really pushed and wanted to take it to another level. Surfing is a sport that Hawaii brought, and it is a gift that Hawaii gave to the world. Mm-hmm. And so much so, we were hoping that we would be distinguished in that regard by allowing Hawaii to be its own entity in the Olympics. Right. That didn't quite happen. It's a difficult topic. I think Tahiti's had the same type of feeling because they're still part of France, correct? And so that's something that is still being discussed in different realms. Perhaps our movie has helped enlighten that. It was a concern of ours that California has done an exceptional job with their surfing heritage and their cultural arts museum, that to some there, they've perhaps been of the ilk that surfing came from their part of town.
Which we all know did not happen. Yeah. Yeah.
Which did not happen. So we want to make sure that this story helped to tell that world. Now, mind you, Duke did not bring surfing to the world. He helped to popularize it and to modernize it. And I think the Australians have accepted that. So have New Zealand. So to touch on the point, I think you see a lot of Pacific Islander influence and reference here. And that is just a component of just the Hawaiians. But it's important to know that the director of the film, Isaac Halasima, is actually a Tongan. And when we first met, it was very interesting because for me, there was a lot of this Pacific Islander influence, a lot of coverage from Australia, Aborigines, the Maoris from New Zealand. And what we feel Duke has done is created a massive resurgence of Indigenous pride for all Polynesians. And that's a very important distinction that Isaac was very proud and wanted to make sure he hit the mark on. So I hope that that's helped to light a fire perhaps for Hawaii and to make sure that the world is reminded that this is one of the sports that is a gift of our state.
You know, it's amazing. I mean, Duke passed away many years ago, yet his legacy and his impact are still very much felt. I want to ask you, because I know you had a huge role in it, going back to authenticity. They task you, by the way, of many different things. I know that for a fact. You haven't slept probably in the last 3 years. Finding the right person, though, to be, if you will, portrayal of Duke. And you said, I know the guy. Maybe your thoughts on behind that, how that became.
Sure. You know, that's a great story. And I want to give him props as much as we can because I thought he did a magnificent role. The individual that Ron and I are talking about is Dwayne DeSoto. Dwayne DeSoto is a world champion longboard surfer, and he is also the founder of Nakamakai, which is a nonprofit organization, Children of the Sea. And what we do at Nakamakai is we provide camps and clinics each month at different moku meaning region of the different island areas here. And we share the history, the Hawaiian history of those areas, but then also teach kids how to utilize the ocean safely, to recreate, to have fun, or to fish, to canoe paddle, to go surfing, but also to respect the ocean, to malama, to take care of it, and the shores that abound. And in 2015, I took a delegation to Australia, to freshwater, which was prominently featured in the film. And we went down there as the 100th anniversary of when Duke went down there as a show of respect to Cecil Healy, who was in the film. And we had a magnificent trip. The Australians were so warm. Their sense of aloha to us was so gratifying to feel. But when we went, they asked if we really recreate this, we would like to have someone play a reenactment of Duke and to grab a Isabel Latham actress and bring her out and ride a wave. And it was lapping shore break. And we felt Dwayne looked the part, a Hawaiian individual who has all the credentials, can ride Alaya boards, can ride a door. He can ride anything. He was very humble. There was a Keolana, one of Brian Keolana's nephews, that Dwayne very humbly thought, oh, maybe you should talk to him. And at the end of the day, we had practiced this again in 2015 with Dwayne. And I said, please talk to him, engage him. And he humbly answered them when they said, do you think you could ride this board? He said, sure, I can ride anything. And indeed he can. I want to, share with the audience here that board that he's riding is a replica. It is 10 feet long and weighs 100 pounds. I just took it to the Moana Surf Rider to set up a display, carried it myself, and it is a complete 100 pounds. So Dwayne is not a normal individual. Those boards back in those days are run close to 2 inches thick. They do not have a skeg or a fin under them. So he is doing incredible things. And I thought he did a magnificent job with his swimming as well as his surfing in portraying Duke.
What a perfect person, not just portraying it because of his skill level, Billy, but also just his inside. He is a Hawaiian, and so that he understands that role and probably has as much responsibility, took as much responsibility as all of you. let's see. Did Save Our Surf follow Duke Kahanamoku's belief about surfing? Just got that question. Are you aware of that?
I apologize. I don't know the answer
Okay.
to that. I apologize.
Okay. Somebody just said, I love the animated historical timeline at the beginning of the film. What was the process in pulling the different sound bites to tell Hawaii's history and choosing the different animated visuals? Can you share that story?
Whoever asked that, that's an excellent question. That comes up often in some of the previews, screenings that I've done. And that is incredible work from the people who are true filmmakers. For those of you on the audience here, I am a credentialed waterman, but I'm also a commercial real estate legal person. So I've learned a lot in this process. I have the connections in Hawaii, but to the filmmakers, those that do animated product have said that work was exceptional. The organization that did that, our director, Isaac Halasima, knows them. They're out of Utah. But to get the content, one of the first assignments I gave the partnership, the producer, Chet Thomas, the director, Isaac Halasima, and certainly a cast of individuals who did incredible work on this film from Sidewinder Films, was to go to Bishop Museum. And they went to Bishop Museum and spent months doing research. That's awesome. A lot of the sound bites come from there. In some, I took particular Kuleana because I heard mispronunciations of Kahanamoku or Liliuokalani and things like that. But I learned that these were sound bites that were recorded and they were exhibits in the museum. We had no control to change them. So that question is an excellent one. Really, what's the magic, I think, is Isaac's ability to weave the product together and to take what was probably 400 or 500 years of history and condense it down into 90 seconds. It's really impressive work.
It was. And like you said, that is a huge span of time that they were able to do it with respect. And again, going back to mispronunciations of words, and we all heard it, those of us who are familiar with Ulelo, but it was authentic. And I think that was important at the time. That's just, that was not acceptable, if you will, in today's standards, but it was what it is. It was what it was at the time. So I appreciate that question like you did. Another one, how can we share this wonderful film about the life of an amazing person with people in other countries? What's being done about that?
Great thought. I don't know the reach. I'll have to lean on you, Brother Ron, but certainly you could recommend people go to PBS.
For sure. I think we got somebody from Portugal watching right now too. So it's happening, and PBS is really humbled to be a part of that.
Aloha and welcome, Portugal. Let me just add very briefly that we were entered in the Gold Coast Surf Film Festival, which again, we kept our batting 1,000 streak, and we won the main award there at that film festival just last month. And our plan is we're looking into going to perhaps Melbourne. I have been contacted about coming to Biarritz, France. Wow. And one of the individuals in the film who I'm particularly close to and was one of Duke's head surf people, Fred Hemmings, the world champion surfing, has contacted me, and he would like to take me along to go to London and France to take the film. So I certainly need to speak to my bosses, the Sidewinder Films, and see what the intentions are, but they're there. I think we wanted to make sure we covered the United States, and for me, particularly Hawaii first. And then I think we do owe a debt of gratitude also to our brothers and sisters in Australia and New Zealand as well, because it's, as I said, created a real massive resurgence of indigenous pride in their cultures.
I like that. Hey, Billy, if you folks head out to Biarritz, let me know. Because maybe I'll tag along. Sure. But yeah, we took Ralph's son out there several years ago, the dear friend of all of ours, because Biarritz was also a huge part of surfing. Yes. And doing a show back then called Beach Break, and it was magical, magical time. God, we miss her. Okay, this person has a really long comment. First of all, having been a Hanai child myself, it says, with no Hawaiian blood, into a Hawaiian family, my heart is deeply touched by Duke's understanding of aloha. Even in the face of discrimination and a loss of financial success as a result, he remained true to himself and the special power of aloha to all. I am curious if any of his extended family descendants are surfing professionals or are working in the surfing field? Any knowledge of that, Bill?
Great question there, and I do too. I was getting a bit emotional hearing that because I've had to show this film north of 60 or 70 times, and I get emotional each time because I think it really touches on the roots of compassion and humility and who we are as human beings, and that's really the essence of the Aloha spirit. And to me, while Duke may be wrapped in as the Michael Phelps and Kelly Slater of his era, I think he personally cared about compassion, humility, and human beings more than he did even his own athleticism. None in the professional ranks. However, Didi Rabella runs Aloha Beach Services. He was a longtime longboard surfing competitor. He is in his 60s now and still running their Aloha Beach Services down there right on Waikiki shores, and he's grooming his kids who are taking over. I know his cousin Mark Kahanamoku lives in California, and they were making some Kahanamoku surfboards for quite some time. And then on the Paoa side, which is Duke's mom's side, John Clark is a young individual who we at the Duke Kahanamoku Foundation just gave a scholarship to, and he is a swim captain at the University of Hawaii swim team, and he's a Maori, a New Zealander.
Wow.
So very interesting history in their family.
Yeah, Billy, I want to kind of echo what you just said about the emotions. This person's April Lani says, Billy, I love the movie. This is the second time I saw it. I cried less this time, but I learned more. So thank you. That's a beautiful comment. Okay, this is another very interesting question, Billy. Thought, though not dwelled upon, it was painful to hear about the lack of resources for the Duke to live during this time. I hope those who benefited from his contributions of time and energy are able to pay it forward with Duke's example. More of a comment, but kind of echoing what you talked about already. He gave, knowing that he could have received a heck of a lot more had he chosen a different path.
That's a wonderful comment and a thought process. It can take you down so many roads. And for myself, being that deep in the forest, it's true that the most of the world that has followed Duke's history has felt that he was the word that's often used as exploited. The power brokers at the time, the powers that be, wanted him to remain an amateur athlete so that Hawaii and USA could be glorified by his champion expertise out in the athletic field. But yet he had no money and was really returned with nothing other than was given a gas station. It was mentioned in the film that he was given a house. The family has told me that I think he was given a loan to get a house. And I think what's magical and what's difficult for us is to know this, but then to see again that when I talked to the people who actually knew him, he seemed to care more about other people, and it was still okay with him. And I think that's a powerful statement. And I had a very tearful exchange with a number of PhDs at Punahou School, and the conversation really moved me in the sense that we reached a point, given his life. So mind you all, this is an individual who is a high school dropout and a beach boy, and probably had more impact and influence on the world than many. He is someone who today is 131 years old. August 24th, he'll be 132. So picture this. 131 years old, 4 statues in 3 different countries, and we're still talking about him.
Yep.
That, I think, almost redefines the words impact and influence. And you don't need to be a billionaire or a .com starter to be somebody that we respect.
Well, I mean, totally makes sense. And if you watch the Olympic Games this year, and you saw what Duke wanted for so many years, finally being recognized as an Olympic sport, and then to have a Hawaiian and Carissa Moore win gold. Talk about timing. It really just added to what you just said.
If I could share just a quick touch on that, because this brings me to tears often. When we had a rough cut of the film, so I'd call it 85% done, Carissa was preparing for the Olympics. And there was a very large south swell, as there is now. And I knew she was going to go do her work while we were all going to go and surf after work. And I asked her, I said, Riz, could we get together? I really want you to come and watch this, because I felt that it would inspire her before she went to the Olympics. I didn't know what the rough cut would look like, but I grabbed her father, Chris, Brian Keolana, legendary waterman, our mentor to many of us, the Hawaii State Film Commissioner, and Donnie Dawson. And we sat at a theater and we watched the film and we were all broken down to tears. It was the first time we've seen Isaac's work product that was reduced. His initial cut, ladies and gentlemen, was over 5 hours long. And a documentary needs to be 90 minutes. So I can't imagine what he had to do to get to 90. She was driven to tears. She wanted to speak last because she was so emotional. But what it did for her, she said, is that it helped her understand her kuleana as a Hawaiian, her responsibility as a Hawaiian. She knows that she's in a business, that she's out to win. She's a mercenary to win world championships, having now 5 of those. But she said, as a human being, she understands she's simply an ambassador of Aloha who is supposed to go around the world and share the Aloha spirit and be a gracious victor or a humble loser, and always share the Aloha spirit so people know this is who we are and where we are from Hawaii. I think it's a magical story to think Duke prognosticated surfing was, as he said, a pretty cool sport. It should be in the Olympics. 100 years later, it's in the Olympics, and the very first gold medal given went to a Hawaiian from the same bay as Duke, Mamala Bay, and she happens to be a female. During that period of 1890 to 1968, that's a key distinction as well for women to step up and for her to be the very first gold. I think it's magical.
Oh, it's like a Hollywood movie. It really is, Billy. I mean, you could really, her life is a Hollywood movie, as we all know, but that element just added, it was crazy that she walked away. She earned it because it was horrible conditions in Japan. I mean, but still she earned it. I want to ask this question because I find it very interesting as well. In 1995-96, this person says the Kahanamoku family declined, refused to be a part of a Duke documentary. How did you get the current relatives, to participate in this film? How did you get their blessing? And not only blessing, but participation?
Yeah, well, I don't know that it'd be safe for me to take all the credit. Certainly the partnership is Sidewinder Films has a miraculous team of individuals, but Chet Thomas, who was the producer, that he and Isaac Holocima, the director who found me, came to me at a canoe race about 3 years ago. And I was bombarded by many friends and competitors, as you know, in our one-man outrigger races. They said, Billy, there's these 3 guys looking for you on the wall, and I'm not sure what they want with you. And I said, I'll make my way in after I take kids for canoe rides, as I usually do after a race. And I went to meet with them. They wanted to do a film on Duke. And, once I felt they were worthy of doing the work, I said, I'd be happy to help. I don't want to be paid for this film. Any money that's given to me, I want it to go to the Duke Kahanamoku Foundation, which has been established to perpetuate Duke's legacy and give scholarships and grants. And that's indeed what happened for me. Along the way, I also said that I think the film should be opened in Hawaii. I want to make sure that we have people who can speak the Hawaiian language and know the true history of Duke involved. And I think we should talk to the family, because there's some sensitivity, as many of you may know, that a lot in the family have felt Duke has been exploited. And I had some great talks with Didi Rebello, and he asked me to speak to Eliane Kahanamoku, who is his elder cousin. She was the oldest of the line. And I shared with them that I thought this is going to be a pono, which is, it's going to be a very correct tale. It's a documentary of his life. And I really think you guys should be a part of it. In my own spirit, I kind of felt there could be discord and consternation, but I thought we could continue to exist this way for another generation, or let's try to open up. Let's try to talk and see what we can do. And I've asked Didi and Eliane to come to several of our showings and to be open to conversation. I think we've received their approval, because they keep coming back and they seem very pleased with the product. So between Chet and myself and Isaac, we've had a wonderful relationship with the family. Awesome. We hope we've served their name well.
Yeah, not only that, I think maybe even start the healing process that needed to happen, Billy, for many years. I think it's a parallel almost with Eddie Aikau's family.
Yeah.
And the Aikau family, who feel sometimes that their brother and the Aikau name exploited as well. So
yes,
little parallels there. We have just 8 minutes left, Billy, and you and I could talk story all day about this. I want to save some time for your final thoughts, but I also want to ask you. You mentioned the Outrigger, the Duke Kahanamoku Foundation, which I'm very involved with you as well, and phenomenal amount of money has been contributed to young student athletes who personify Duke. And when they get it, when they receive these scholarships, it's emotional because they understand the gift that they're getting, but also the responsibility that comes with that. Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Yes. Thanks so much. The Outrigger Duke Kahanamoku Foundation was established in 1986, and the purpose of the foundation really is to raise funds so that we can provide scholarships and grants to keiki, or children of Hawaii, who continue to perpetuate Duke's great legacy. And by that, we mean they need to be competing at a very high level in Duke sports, which we all know from the film includes swimming, water polo, surfing, canoe paddling, and also volleyball. Another tidbit of history for any of you volleyball fans out there: one of Duke's greatest friends and mentors and first swim coach and paddling coach and teammate was George Dad Center. If you only saw the movie once, please watch it again, because I can assure you everyone has said that it's better a second time. George Dad Center is the inventor of the game beach volleyball. And Duke was often insinuated to have created it because he was so prolific at sports. What we try to do is find kids who are doing exceptionally well at sports. Because Duke didn't complete high school, we feel that he probably would be honored that we look for kids who, in addition, do exceptionally well at school. But then what we feel is an overarching necessity is to have that spirit of aloha, right? They have to give back to community. They have to care about their brothers and sisters of the community. So we look at that well-balanced individual, provide scholarships, and try to share their stories and hope that they will continue to emulate Duke's style and share this story. So it's something that's been very magical. And if you all don't mind, I would like to share briefly that I can't imagine having a better partner than Sidewinder Films.
Yeah.
These people have brought me to tears. They made me a producer. They gave me funds. I gave it all to the foundation. They stepped up at my Hawaii Waterman Hall of Fame event to be the title sponsor. What they do is they make films that cause social change. They care about a return on their films, but they care more that they cause social change in our world, especially a world today that's full of strife and conflict. The last film that they made prior to this, for those of you who want to look up Sidewinder, is a story it's called At the Heart of Gold. It's the story of the United States Olympic gymnastics team and the horrible atrocities that were brought upon the U.S. Olympic female gymnastics team members by Dr. Larry Nasser. It was a HBO Emmy Award-winning film. And what they'll do in that film, which is a much tougher, a harder grip than this one, they're going to get in the community. They're going to find out those organizations like Duke Kahanamoku Foundation, as well as Nakamakai, organizations that are giving back to kids, trying to make the community better. And they're hoping through this message that the world will understand the Aloha spirit, not just surfing, but the Aloha spirit, and will choose to want to share love versus strife, conflict, or fight. And I think they did an exceptional job making Duke. And I'm so honored to be a part of Sidewinder Films with this.
Oh gosh, I can imagine, Billy. Certain things in life that we do, we hope are lasting, are part of our legacy. And I'll tell you what, I've known you for many years. This is a very special part of your legacy, I'm sure. I'm gonna wrap it up, but I want to give you your final thoughts. Just an FYI, we when I reached out to Billy, I said, hey, let's get Dwayne on as well, and let people talk about it to Dwayne about being, portraying Duke. Dwayne couldn't be here because he's out in the ocean right now. Maybe you can give us a quick thing, and then from there, share your final thoughts. But Dwayne today is where?
Yeah, so Dwayne DeSoto unfortunately couldn't make it. I was hoping that our famous Duke reenactor and surfboard rider would be available to share his Aloha spirit. He was asked to be on the Hikiana Lea, which is one of the voyaging canoes that's traveling with the Hokulea. And they're on one of their voyages from Hawaii to Tahiti. And they'll be arriving in Tahiti anytime this weekend. So we have a small delegation there to receive him. And, I can't speak enough to this movie. Again, I think props go to David Ulick, Stephen Ungerleider, Melanie Raffel, and their team at Sidewinder, along with Chet Thomas and Isaac Halasima, the director. I think they put together a wonderful product, and I truly mean this. It's a better film the second or third time because we're finding out there's so much to unpack in Duke's life. And if we look at the magnitude of the impact, somebody who's 131 years old and has 4 statues in 3 countries have done things that have left influence upon all of us. And I think there is a legacy there that we should all follow and do our part to contribute. Going forward, obviously, we're delighted to be a part of this engagement with PBS to get the message and share the story. And from here, I think that there's educational content. This story can be taken. I've already shared it personally as a trustee in private schools to engage with the children, because if we can provide this is a hero on parallel with Jesse Owens and Jackie Robinson. And perhaps we're geographically isolated, being out on the islands, and maybe it's just surfing and swimming being a sport, which are smaller sports, but it's a story that really needs to be retold. And I really think that this organization did an exceptional job. I think they got the right voices to command in Tom Stone and Moses Goods, and certainly Brian Keaulana and the cast, Uncle Freddie Hemmings. I think that if we can carry this Aloha spirit into the next generation, then we all on this call will be serving our kuleana, our responsibility going forward.
Oh, God, beautifully said, Billy. And full transparency, Billy and I go way back. I watched Billy's back go by me for many years and many races. But yeah, not just a handsome Hawaiian face, but this guy is the real deal in the ocean, folks. And we're very, it's humbling to know you, my friend. And I'll do anything for you. I'll take a bullet for you. This concludes our discussion for today. We thank you all for spending your afternoon with us. Apologize if we didn't get to all of your questions. PBS Hawaiʻi will be sending all of you an audience survey through our email. Feedback is very much valued. We want to get better, and our team wants to improve on our efforts when it comes to these types of screenings. Like I said, we have people from all over the world watching us right now, not just here in Honolulu or Kailua or Kauai, but as far across as Portugal. Thank you for joining us. Also, we're going to throw a QR code on your screen. Please consider a gift to PBS Hawaiʻi. Without your donations, without viewers like you, we can't do stuff like this. So we do ask you to, if you do the QR code thing, which I can barely do at a restaurant these days, but we do know that people are savvy enough to do that. Please donate. And don't forget, the broadcast of this will premiere once again on May 10th. That's a Tuesday night at 9 p.m. right here on PBS Hawaiʻi. I got to wrap things up, Billy, but maybe your final words, and then we'll say aloha.
My final words would be mahalo to everyone for being a part of this viewing. I certainly hope you enjoyed it. I certainly hope you get an opportunity to take it in again on PBS. And Ron, mahalo to you and your team for having me. I'm just a voice, a very small part of a wonderful organization that I think put together a very meaningful film. And I would like to end by saying what Duke would say. Aloha to all of you on this call. Aloha.
Right on, Billy. And on that, I'll say on behalf of all of us here at PBS Hawaiʻi, we want to say thank you, mahalo nui, and aloha as well. Until next time.
Aloha.